Hello everyone, my name is Michael Tirallo. I am a Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Qlik, as well as a Community Administrator and Advocate for the Qlik Sense Community Forums. I'd like to welcome all of you to this webinar and thank you for spending this time with me today to learn about our next generation data visualization product known as Qlik Sense. So let's get started first with a short presentation. Now, you might have heard us state many times in our presentations and materials that Qlik Sense can help unleash your intuition. But what exactly do we mean when we say that? So let's first define intuition. Intuition is simply the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning or deep thinking. Combine that knowledge with Qlik Sense and you have self-service data visualization that is truly made to be fast and easy. It's easy to understand, easy to use, easy to visualize data, while prompting you to ask that very important next question, which is usually needed in order to make important business decisions. Qlik Sense makes data accessible to anyone and allows you to use intuition by using a redefined approach to self-service data visualization, data access, and discovery, which helps you find that unexpected. As you will see, anyone can actually do this, reducing dependency on IT and empowering users of all types with the ability to discover, create, and share meaningful analysis using capabilities such as our global smart search, smart data load, smart visualizations, data compression, and data storytelling. These capabilities truly enable faster time to insight to anyone, anytime, anywhere, and on any device. Now, I've been in the BI industry for over 16 years. I've seen and used a variety of products out there. Some claim to be self-service. However, you need to ask yourself this question. Is self-service truly self-service if you still need to depend on others to get the data you need, or if it requires significant help or preparation in order to use the tools? No, it's not. So keep that in mind as you watch what I do today. So today I'll be using the full-featured free Qlik Sense Desktop product. It's the same product that you can download right now from our website after this webinar. I will create a simple app that will not only help me analyze data from multiple data sources, but it will also help me share my findings with others using capabilities such as data storytelling, as well as the Qlik Sense Cloud. So I'm going to start out simple and then I'm going to work my way up using more of the advanced capabilities. At the same time, note there is a licensed version of the Qlik Sense server known as Qlik Sense Enterprise Server that takes the local Qlik Sense experience to the next level by providing online creation and analysis capabilities along with collaboration, security, management, governance, and mobile readiness. So in addition to that, we also have a hosted sharing service called Qlik Sense Cloud. And this allows you to share your Qlik Sense desktop apps with up to 5 individuals for free, and allows them to use a read-only or interact-only version of the app that you create with Qlik Sense Desktop. If there's time at the end of the webinar, I will show that as well. And our final slide is, I understand there are different types of audiences that are attending this webinar, so I will attempt to strike a balance and cater to each, but realize there are many informative materials available from our website and the Qlik community. So even though I might not cover something specific to your needs today, you may be able to find it in our comprehensive materials and videos on the community and the website. So I encourage you to join the Qlik community and visit the website when you can. Alright, so let's get started with a very simple example. I'm actually in Qlik Sense Desktop right now, kicking off this presentation with our data storytelling capability. If there's time later, I'll kind of jump into some of that as well. So what you see here is the Qlik Sense Desktop Hub. And this is an interface that is installed with the Qlik Sense Desktop product, which is installed on a Windows environment in 64-bit version only. And here's where you organize your apps. And your apps basically contain the data that you load from the source, your visualizations, the sheets that contain the visualizations, as well as bookmarks and data stories. So what we're going to do here is create a simple app. And what I'm going to do is just call this Sales Webinar Analysis and click Create. So now we have a location to start loading our data and creating our visualizations. And here we're going to open the app. So once the app is open, you have a location where you can view additional descriptive information. You can edit the icon or the thumbnail to represent the application. You can add a description or change the title. And then you could also start adding data to the app. And you can add data a few ways. You can add data from files, such as Excel files, delimited files, fixed record files, or you can go directly into the data load editor, which is our scripting interface that allows you to extend and transform data in the app. To keep things simple, what we're going to do is I have some data already here on my desktop, and I'm going to grab my customer data and I'm going to drop it right onto the loading area. And what you notice is Qlik Sense Smart. It interprets the sheets inside the Excel file and it represents them as tables. And what you can see here is I can choose my customers and my products, for example. These are 3 tabs inside the Excel spreadsheet, and you can see all of the different data columns. Now if I wanted to deselect them or rename them, I can do so. Now when looking at this data, I might have relationships between some of these columns, and we normally associate data on similar column names, but there are times where the data values might not actually match up to other values within a column that might have the same name. So let's just pretend I do not understand how this data can be associated with one another. For example, products and product categories, or customers and orders. So we have our Smart Data Load feature here, which is enabled by clicking Profile. And what that does is it creates recommendations based off of a sampling of the data, as well as the column names, and it enlightens you to how the columns can be related or associated. So in this example here, by default it shows no association for the products and the categories because there isn't any names that are the same. Notice we have category ID and we have category number. However, the recommendation is that it notices that there is a value match of 100% based off of the sampling for category ID and category number. So we can choose to select that association, and we can give it our own name, or we can choose to name it whatever default name we have for the column. In this case, I'll just call it category num. Now you'll notice that there's some other data within supplier ID and the category num, and the match on that is 53%. So you'll have to use your discretion, but basically you could assume safely that supplier ID and category number are not an associated column. Then we can go to the next recommendations, and we can see there's no association by default, and then we have product ID and customer number, supplier ID and customer number. There isn't any association here. So now we can load and finish this data. Okay, so now what we can do is go into our sheet and we can start developing a very simple visualization. Now you'll notice this layout has menu items, and you have your charts or visualizations. You also have your fields and a library of reusable assets such as reusable expressions or visualizations that you've predefined. You'll also notice that I have a couple additional visualizations here that you might not have, and these are extension objects that I've downloaded from our developer network. Look at the Qlik community if you want more information on that immediately. So what we'll do is we'll grab a bar chart, and bar charts are great for comparing dimensional data values and their measures. So let's add a category dimension. So in this case we're going to look at categories, and then let's add a measure for sales. I did not put in my measure for sales. I obviously don't have that. So let's grab my other data set that I have available here, and let's grab my orders. And you'll notice that I can drag it right into my work area and have this iterative development process as I design my application. I didn't have to go back into another data loading screen. I simply just drag and drop my new data file onto my canvas, and you'll see how it interprets the data file, and there's my sales column that I want to use. Now before I load this data, I'm going to also want to profile this information again, because I want to see how this relates to the existing data that's already in the app. And what you can see here is we have our category number, category num, and shipper ID. So there's no association here between categories and orders, for example. So we can just skip to the next one. Now with this one, we have our customer number and customer ID. Now by default, there's no association, but you can see here that customer ID and customer ID have the same name, but they have different data values. That's why they're highlighted in red, and they don't have much of an association. So what I want to do is select my customer number and my customer ID, and we're going to name it customer number, and then we can step through the last one. And you can see we also have product ID and product number at 100% recommendation, and select product ID as a default name. And now we can load and finish. So what we've just done is added existing data to my customers, my categories, my products. We added our orders data. And you'll notice that I didn't have to be concerned about what type of join it was, if it was an inner join or full outer join, because we're not a SQL-based query tool. We have our own indexed in-memory model in our engine that maintains the relationships and performs the aggregations on the fly. And it's not important to understand what type of table, which is a primary table, which is a secondary table, for example. It just works. You just bring it into the system and you start designing. So now I could very easily add my measure. So let's grab my sales, and now we select sum of sales, and there's our bar chart. Let's give it a title. Let's say sales by category. And let's start exploring some of the different options within these charts. So on the right side, you'll see the properties panel. And basically, the majority of visualizations are going to follow this same paradigm with this accordion style type menu and these expandable tabs that allow you to change various properties. So for example, labels, I'm just going to call it category. And you'll notice that some of the dimensions will have what's called dimension limits. This is a great feature which allows you to, for example, perform top and bottom type of ranking or analysis. For example, if I would just want to look at the top 3 values, or possibly top 2 and then everything else, or just top 3, I can do that by selecting fixed number. Or I can choose an exact value compared to sales. Maybe I want to look at sales that are greater than or less than a certain amount. Okay, so keep that in mind, that dimensions have the ability to be limited by additional features inside this dimension tab. For sum of sales, we're just going to call this sales and make this money formatting. Okay, sorting, very simple. Could just change the sort order. If I choose, I might want to also make it ascending or descending depending on how I want this to look. In this case, we'll just leave it by category. Add-ons, a nice little section for future support for different features. In this case, maybe I just want to add a reference line, and we'll call it goal, and we'll make it green. And maybe we say our goal is 4 million. And then appearance, this is where we could adjust appearance properties for axis, Y and X, as well as colors, presentation in general. Maybe for this particular example, I'm going to add a subtitle such as darker color shows higher number of products sold. And you'll see what I mean in a moment when I do that. But you can see I could now add a subtitle or footnote. Presentation will make it a horizontal. We choose to put values on the particular bars. And then for colors and legend, here we can say a single color, color by dimension, color by measure. And in this case, coloring by measure is quite redundant, where the darker color is indication of the higher value. If I say color by expression, I have 2 options here. I can actually perform a if-then-else or logical expression that results inside, let's say, a color code. Or I can go in and I can put an expression such as, let's take a count of product IDs. So let's get my product IDs and let's insert them into this expression. And what that's going to do is it's going to change the coloring of the bars, where now the larger the bar indicates the higher number of sales, and the darker the color indicates the highest number of products sold. So that way you're plotting multiple metrics on the same visualization. Okay, let's adjust this particular object. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little example of how quickly you can bring data into an app, and then how quickly you can style your particular object. Now, nice little feature here is after I'm done styling this object, I can drag it into my master items, where I could reuse it later on or use it in other sheets and then customize it. This also comes in handy a little bit later when we are importing this app into the Qlik Sense server, and then you want to put some governance around this app and then provide this as a template, let's say, for people to get started, and then they can create their own, because we can use somebody else's work and then build on top of that and make it our own. Okay, so let's go back here. And next what I want to do is let's add some interactivity by performing some selections. And what I want to do is just let's add country. You can see just by dragging the field it creates a list box. And let's grab our customers. Okay, and let's go into view mode. And now this is where I can start interacting with the particular chart object. And you'll notice that when I added my objects on my screen, I didn't clutter my screen with checkboxes or radio buttons or list boxes, for example. I just lay them out as I need them, but you can see that I can also interact and select within the chart objects. Okay, so that's a key differentiator within our product is that you don't need to take up all your real estate with selection interface, because a lot of the selection capability is built into the chart objects or in our selection bar, etc. Okay, so let's just perform a selection. Let's say I want to perform an analysis on Germany. Okay, you'll notice as I selected Germany, a couple things happened. Qlik Sense provided feedback in the form of interacting by updating the chart with my selection for Germany. Okay, but you'll also notice that I didn't have to wire anything up together. I didn't have to link parameters. I didn't have to create filters and then apply them to these visualizations. It's all part of that indexed in-memory data model that we use, and it represents the selections and the associations automatically. All you have to do is click, pun intended. The other piece of information you'll see is through the color scheme of green, white, and shades of gray. Okay, so if you're familiar with Qlik products, you'll see that we provide visual feedback in the form of this color scheme to show you related and unrelated information. So the green is selected, the light gray is possible values that are available, the white is what's related to the selected green value, and the dark gray is what's unrelated. Okay, so you don't lose perspective when you select data. You're not divorcing yourself from the rest of the data. You're not eliminating the rest of the data when you select. So this provides a deeper insights and allows you to ask that next question, because you might have, for example, a product that didn't sell in a particular region, and when you select that region and see the dark gray for the products, you might say, well, why didn't it sell in that particular region? And you're alerted to additional information that you weren't aware of. Whereas with traditional BI tools or SQL-based visualization tools, you lose that context when performing the selection. Okay, so let's clear this up. And what I'm going to do is just delete these for now. We're going to come back to this, and we'll save our work. Okay, so this is one example of creating something very quickly with Qlik Sense Desktop, but where Qlik Sense really shines is in a server-side online environment. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch over to a web browser on my machine, and I'm going to access a environment that I have set up for this demonstration. That allows me to access Qlik Sense in a server environment. This is Enterprise, Qlik Sense Enterprise Server. And you can see we have a similar interface. Now, Qlik Sense Enterprise Server could be installed on-premise. It could be installed on a hosted environment like an Amazon or a Rackspace, for example. And all you need is a web browser, an HTML5 compliant web browser, to access the particular interface. And the same creation capabilities are available as well, including the management, administration, and governance capabilities. So you see within this view here we have what's called the Qlik Sense Hub, and the hub has streams, and what streams are is just a way of organizing and securing content for individual users. So based off of the user ID that I'm logged in with, I have access to a particular stream. So streams help organize and secure analysis. So here I'm interested in the Consumer Goods Sales app, and I click on that app, and it brings me into an overview of the app that shows me all of the sheets that have my visualizations, as well as bookmarks, which are predefined selection states, and data stories, which are narratives or my findings that I've collected through my analysis and then I want to present to my management team later on. So let's say I just want to look at sales rep performance. So I'm going to choose the Sales Rep Performance app, get a little bit of information about it, and then open that app up. And here we see our gorgeous visualizations laid out in the form of a tree map, a scatter plot, a data table, and a bar chart. So let's say I might have some knowledge of the dimensional model, for example, the dimensions and values, but if you're not sure, what is one of the things that people do when they don't know how to find something? They search. So with our global smart search capability, we can search all of the data that's been loaded into the app, and the smart capability, the searching, will provide a index list of relevance of values that you can choose from based off of what you typed in. For example, I'm interested in looking for low performers. So as I start typing, you can see it's giving me a recommendation of values, such as, are you looking for a low performer, low fat, lower, and you can see all of the instances of these values inside these dimensions or fields. that provide values that have the value or text value of low in it. In this case, I want low performer, so by selecting low performer, that actually initially initiates a selection for the sales rep performance field. And you can see this is also an example of a governed data value that I've selected. So I only have an option to choose low performer, or in this case, high performer. Okay, so we're going to focus on the low performers. So that's another way of initiating a selection within the interface and helping those along with their analysis. Now let's focus on the bottom 3 reps here of those low performers. And you can see as I interact with the data table, all I do is simply select those particular values. And we can confirm those selections. Okay. Now we have a scatter plot here, and this scatter plot basically is showing me sales versus margin, and they're also colored by the number of lost customers. So with these high margin, low selling products in this particular area, we're losing the most customers for these particular reps. So this is uncovering a particular opportunity or discovery. Now this might be too small for my viewing, so I can make it larger. And when I make it big, we also allow the number of labels to be hidden or to display. We also provide an indication or heads-up display, if you will, of the various dots or points or data elements that are in my view. Okay, this is part of our responsive design that allows you to see as much information as possible within your viewing area, so it gives you the most optimal viewing experience. Okay, so if I wanted the performer selection here, I can select these high margin products and I can confirm my selection. Now at the same time, I might be interested in capturing this data for a presentation that I might use later, so I can turn on snapshot mode and take a snapshot of my particular analysis that I'm going to use later and lay that out within my data story. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. Okay, so that's an example of interacting with the data. It gives you an example of smart charting and the color intelligence. Now let's say I want to navigate to the next page and I want to look at this information geographically. You'll see that my selections are maintained within the sheet. I'm still looking at those 3 selected low-performing sales reps. And what we've done is we've uncovered another opportunity here by looking at the sales within the Northeast. And we can see that there aren't any in the Northeast. So therefore, another opportunity. But at the same time, this gives me an opportunity to learn something a little bit more about my data. And you'll notice that in my selection bar across the top, Sense is giving me another piece of information through the power of green, white, and shades of gray. Now let me use my browser here. I'm just going to zoom in using the Control+ key on the keyboard, and you can see that these bars that are available here give me an indication of the number of values that are available within the sales rep category, and it's also showing me the shades of gray, including the green. The green is the current set of sales reps that we're looking at. The light gray are showing me the other low performers that are out there, and then the dark gray is showing me the reps that are not low performers. Okay, so let me just reset my zoom here. Okay, and based off of this indication here, I can learn a little bit more about the other low performers. And I can do that by selecting the interface and then choosing Select Alternative. And what that will do is show me the other low performing sales reps, that the alternative selection. And you can see what we have here is that those particular low performers were not having any problems selling products within the Northeast. So uncovering another opportunity there. Okay. If I wanted to take this information and export it out to, let's say, a graphic like a PNG or a JPEG file, I very simply can just right-click and select Export as Image, or I could also choose to export it to a PDF. If I wanted the entire sheet to be exported to a PDF, I can select Export Sheet to PDF from the menu item above. So just keep that in mind as well. So printing and export capability are available through the use of right-click in the menu options. Okay, so we're going to switch gears now. So what I'm doing here by presenting this to you live could be perceived quite odd if I was in a, let's say, management meeting to present my findings. So what I would normally do is probably present a narrative or story based off of my findings. And if you remember, I can take a snapshot during my analysis of any of the particular chart objects that we discover and store them inside the snapshot repository. But let's go to our data storytelling mode, and let's look at the data story that's been prepared for the sales rep performance. And what you can see here is that now we have the story prepared that I can play again, can be displayed on a tablet or on a smartphone, or as you see here on a browser. And then this is basically the collection of the snapshots of the point-in-time analysis combined with additional context and text and graphics. So here's our bottom performing sales reps. Here's the scatter plot showing the impact on margin, and that it's the high margin products that our worst performing sales reps are losing the most customers. And then here is the indication showing you that there was no sales within the Northeast. Here's a couple of others that I didn't go through today for the demonstration, but give you an indication of how they can be assembled. And then one of the things I'd like to focus on here is that, so we're saying during our presentation, even low-performing reps are selling fresh vegetables. And you can see that fresh vegetables is the top-performing product group in the central region versus all regions. But what happens during these presentations? Sometimes you're challenged and additional questions are asked, and you might want to answer them immediately, but what do you have to do? In a traditional sense, you might have to go back, rerun your analysis, and then come back and present the findings again. But at any time, you can jump out of your data storytelling and go directly to the source of when you captured that snapshot, and then start performing additional analysis. So somebody says, well, I see central region is selling fresh vegetables, but what about the other regions? Well, let's check it out. If I choose Northeast, fresh vegetables. If I choose Southern, fresh vegetables. And if I choose Western, we see wine and cheese, and then fresh vegetables comes into the top 3. Okay, so that allows you to answer those additional questions during the presentation, and then we can seamlessly jump back right into the data story and continue our presentation. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a nice indication of how you can analyze data, perform selections, capture your findings, and then present those findings within data storytelling. So what we're going to do now for the rest of the presentation is going to go back into Qlik Sense Desktop. I'm going to show you a couple additional features within the product. All right, so this was our first chart that we created, so let's grab another object. I'm going to grab the KPI object. And let's say that I want to look at our sales data. And a KPI object is great for tracking performance of your metrics displayed within, let's say, a single textual value here. And the KPI object allows you to actually use a single value or double values for comparison. So I can actually compare, let's say, sales and cost. Now, for this part of the demonstration, these are US sales. Maybe I want to see what this is converted to euros. And the way I need to do that is I have to bring in some currency exchange data into my existing app. And this is a good segue to show you how we could bring in external curated data sources hosted on our cloud service, which we would call data as a service, provided by our product Qlik Data Market. And with Qlik Data Market, you have access to a library of various comprehensive sources such as demographics, socioeconomics, weather, currency exchange information, and with more libraries being added as we continue to release more of the product. So to show you how I'm going to do that, I'm going to actually go into a section here called the Data Manager. And the Data Manager allows you to see all of the data sources that you've imported and then also add new data sources. So in this case, we're going to add more data to this app. And you can see through my interface, I have my connections that have already been created. I can connect a variety of data sources. And then there's an option to select Qlik Data Market. And Qlik Data Market gives me an access to those comprehensive libraries that I've mentioned. And these are stored and hosted by Qlik, and they're always up to date. And you always know where the data is coming from, so there's no question of either data lineage. Now for demonstration purposes, just to make this quick, I'm going to select currency. And from the currency data set, we do offer free and paid for data services. I'm not going to get into that right now, but notice that with Qlik Sense Desktop, you do have an access to a subset of free sources of data. In this case, currency exchange, the most common ones for, let's say, euro, a pound, and US dollar. So I'm going to choose the 3x3 currency exchange rates. And this is going out to the cloud or data as a service, and it's bringing back the table information that I can incorporate into my existing app. Now, I obviously have a column inside my data already that it's going to automatically relate to, so I'm going to show you how that works. So I'm going to choose my base currency as US dollar. The quote currency is going to be euro, and I want to select the most recent time. So this is actually going to bring back just one row of data that I'm going to use within my calculation for the conversion. And you can see the sampling of the data below. Now I'm going to click Profile once again, and what this is going to do is going to show you how this data from this external data source links to my internal data. And there happens to be a column called base currency. Now it's highlighted in red because the percentage of recommendation is low, because the base currencies that are coming back from the data service is just one value, US dollar, and then the ones that are in my data have many. But in this case I know that is correct, so we're going to leave that association as selected, and we're going to load and finish this. Okay, so right now we're now incorporating the external data to our existing data model. Okay, and we have a column called exchange rate that we're going to use. So let's go back to our app, and we're going to add a calculation through the use of our master items. And then in the measure section is here where we can create expressions which are going to be reused. And we're going to do a couple of these, but the one I'm interested in right now is going to be the sum of sales. So we're going to choose aggregation, sum of sales, and we're going to multiply that by no aggregation, exchange rate, and click Insert. Click Apply, and we're going to call this one Euro Sales, and click Create. Okay, while I'm in here now, I'm also going to create another expression. I'm just going to type this one in here. We're going to create margin percentage. So I'm going to say sum of GP, gross profit, divided by sum of sales, and we're going to call this margin. Okay, so this is just giving you a way of creating reusable metrics or measures that you can use within your apps. Okay, so now I'm going to take my euro sales, I'm going to drop it right on top of my KPI and say add euro sales, and now you can see the difference between the sum sales US dollars, so maybe you can call this US dollars, versus euro sales. Okay, so how easy was that? I hope some of you are nodding your head here. I mean, all I did was go into my data manager, click on data market, and incorporated external data, in this case in the form of an exchange rate, directly into my data set. And every time this data is refreshed, it'll have the updated exchange rates, because we are responsible for refreshing that data on a regular basis. Okay, so that's an example of bringing in the external data from Qlik Data Market. Let's bring in some mapping data now. Okay, and this is obviously part of the demonstration is designed to kind of show you almost everything that's possible within the product. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our geo map. Okay, so if I go to my chart objects and I grab our map component, okay, and you'll notice here that I also have a Google map. That is actually something that's been created as an extension, and that's again available from our developer network. So we're going to use our default map object, and I have to add a location key. Okay, so it just so happens I don't have the location data, which needs to be in the form of latitude and longitude, but I do have it available within my SQL Server. So what I'm going to do is go back to my data manager, click Add Data, and then go to Connect to My Data, and then select Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, so this is a variety of different data connections. To keep things simple, and for those who might ask this, we can connect to almost any data that has an OLADB driver, an ODBC driver, a file, or it could be web-based, for example, and you can see a variety of connectors here. With our ODBC connector pack, which is available as a separate installation, you have a variety of different access to some big data, such as Apache, Cloudera, Impala, Teradata, and relational databases. And in this ODBC connector pack, you don't have to configure any external ODBC DSNs or separate configurations. We provide all of the connectivity for you directly in the pack. And that's an example here. I'm going to use this Microsoft SQL Server. And all you have to do is provide the parameters. So localhost, the database in this case is named Getting Started, and I'm going to use Windows Integrated Security. And we're going to give our connection a name. I'm just going to call it Location Data, and then click Next. Okay, so this is now going to bring in data from Microsoft SQL Server that I have installed locally into my app. Okay, so hopefully you're noticing how we're bringing in multiple data sources very, very easily into this app. Okay, hopefully that's sticking in your mind as we go through this. So I select the owner, and there is my GSW locations, and there's my sampling of data. Now I'm also going to click Profile again because I want to see how this relates to my existing data set. And it just so happens that in my customer data I have a column called City, and in my location data I also have a column called City. So now we'll load and finish that. And that will bring in my latitude and longitude into my existing app. All right. Now, there's one other step that I have to do here is I have to go into my data load editor, and this is a great segue to show you how we can also perform additional transformations and showing the power of Qlik Script. In my opinion, any real data visualization tool is going to have some sort of method to extend, not only through APIs like .NET or JavaScript, but through actual native extension and data transformation through the use of a native scripting language. And that's what we have. And you'll notice if I go to the auto-generated section, this is the script that's been generated by the wizards. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is unlock this script because I want to make some additional changes, and the changes that I need to make here are at the locations data because we require a key that's in a format that is defined by this function called geoMakePoint. So when we take our latitude and longitude in, we basically create an alias. I'm just going to call it location key, and now we have the appropriate structure that we can use within our map. Now, for those of you who might not know how to use certain functions or methods, at any time you can enable online help, click on the hyperlink of the highlighted function, and this will bring you directly to the particular help site or section of the or contextual section of the link that you just created. Okay, and there's our geospatial functions. Okay, just turn off help mode, and now we're going to load this data. Okay, we have successful load. Now we can go back to our app, and I can now add my dimension. In this case, I'm going to add just city, and you can see now all of the cities that are plotted based off of that location information. So now I want to plot sales by city. So we need to plot our sales metrics. So what I'm going to do is just grab my sales, drop it right on top of my map, and add it as sum. And you can see the dots are sized appropriately. I can reduce the size if I choose, change the opacity, and change the label. Here we'll just call this sales. And then we have the ability to use other map services that we provide based off of a hyperlink within our help. You could use your own map service if you have a Slippy Map standard type of service, or you can choose to use the default map service provided by Mapbox and OpenStreet. And then maybe here what we'll do is we'll color by expression, and I'll use the same expression here, count product ID. And now the darker color indicates the higher number of products that have been sold. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a couple of additional measures and dimensions and expressions, and we're going to do that within the master library. And we're going to create a new dimension here, and dimensions here can build up like a data dictionary that you can then provide this as a template to others that they can therefore build from. So in this case, just to keep it simple, what we're going to do is define a, maybe I want to do time series analysis, and I have an order date, but I don't have year or month, for example. And what I need to do is just use a function called year, and then from my field list, I can choose, let's say, order date, and now I have my years. Okay, and we'll call that year, add dimension, and now I'm going to do the same thing for month. I'm going to go in here and provide order date as a parameter to the month function, click apply, and give the name of month. Add that dimension. Then I also want to create a drill down, okay, and a drill down dimension is a natural hierarchy or like a parent-child relationship which allows you to drill into that visualization from a top-level summary into different levels of detail. So maybe I would like to look at countries, and then I want to look at the different cities, and then maybe customers. And we'll call this one location drill. Add that dimension. Let's go grab our scatter plot. Okay, And let's add our measures here. We're going to do a margin, and we're going to plot sales. And the dimension, in this case, we'll use our location drill. Okay, and we can see here some of the outliers, such as the United States. And we can make this sales versus margin. Okay, now we're going to expand upon the scatter plot, and with the final feature that I want to show you is smart data compression. It's a new algorithm that has been designed within our scatter plot that allows you to plot large amounts of data, up to billions of rows, into a single visualization. And then with the use of clustering and color density, you're able to drill into that additional detail to start uncovering those outliers. Because some of the traditional problems with using a scatter plot is if you plot large amounts of data, data gets hidden. It becomes one big blob or one big mass. Okay, so with our new smart data compression, we have the ability to color the areas with a gradient, if you will, and you can see the darker areas will show a higher density of data points. So like, for example, I have in this data set maybe over 5,000 order IDs. Now to plot that, let's grab our scatter plot. Let's adjust this here. And let's add order ID. And then let's add our margin and our sales again. And what you're going to see is the scatter plot is going to look fairly different. It's going to be utilizing these blue squares, if you will, and then you can see the areas of dark blue are indicating a higher concentration of those particular order IDs for that particular relationship between margin and sales. Okay, so let me go into a interact only mode, and here I can choose the compression view, how I want to see that based off of the amount of data points that are in there. It's kind of like a zoom or a compression resolution. Okay, and then as I start to zoom in, I can use my wheel mouse, and you'll see that we start revealing more information within the form of numbers. So in this particular area here, we have 315 orders that have a margin around 20% with this low number of sales. So if I keep zooming into that area, you can see the concentration starts to break apart, and that eventually it becomes the scatter plot, the scatter points that you can focus on the bits of information. You have like a heads-up display window here. You can choose your zoom level and resolution zoom, but basically you're able to identify large amounts of data in a single visualization based off of the way this algorithm plots it with the colors and the densities. Okay, so what we're going to do next is I'm going to take some snapshots of my findings, and then we're going to assemble a narrative or a data story using data storytelling, and then we're going to take this particular app and upload it to the Qlik Sense cloud. So let's take some snapshots of our findings, such as my bar chart and the scatter plot, and then let's go into data storytelling, create a new story, and then we have a canvas where we can begin laying out our objects. So on the side we could add a title, we could add graphics, we could add effects to charts, images from our image repository, as well as select our repository snapshots. So there's the scatter plot, and there's my bar chart. So I'll lay those out. You can even size them appropriately. You can also make minor edits to the existing object by unlocking the object and going into edit mode. And you can change, maybe I don't want to display the values on the bars. You could also add some minor effects to certain types of charts. Maybe I want to highlight just the lowest value as such. And then I want to add a title. And we'll just call this one Sales Findings to keep it simple. And we could also add a paragraph of text. And then I could add a graphic from the graphic library. Maybe we want to point out one of the outliers here and add another little bit of text. And just put a little test value there so you can see how it works. Okay. If you have images within your image repository, you could also add images from there as well. And I'm not going to do that just at this time. Okay, so that's how you create a data story slide. You could add new slides. you could actually choose to embed an existing sheet, such as the active sheet. And this comes in handy when you want to put a couple of controls around who has access to the app, and they have some minor selection and filter capabilities directly within the embedded sheet. So therefore, you could share a story with somebody, have access to a sheet within an app and not the entire app, for example, and they could work this interaction by going into play mode, for example. Okay, let's just give you an example of that. All right, so let's save our story. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go back, and we're going to now take our app that we've created, and we're going to upload it to the Qlik Cloud. Now, you could right-click on your app, select Upload to Qlik Cloud. You could click on this Cloud button. Basically, it's going to bring you to qlikcloud.com, where you would register, and then you have access to an interface. But for this particular webinar, what I'm going to do is just go to a specialized version of Qlik Cloud. It's something that will be available later this year. Currently, it'll also be available in beta in the up-and-coming months. But this version of Qlik Cloud also allows creation in the cloud and something called Qlik Sense Charts, which will be able to allow you to share the visualizations you create publicly and embed them within like a blog or an app that is internet publicly facing. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this example here, select my personal cloud and click New App. And here, I'm going to upload that app. I'm going to select Choose File. So we're not going to do any creation of any apps in this webinar. We're just going to upload our existing app. So I'm going to select Choose File, and I'm going to select my Sales Webinar Analysis. And I'm also going to publish this app to my shared stream. So what I'm doing here is you can upload this into the Qlik Sense Cloud to be your own copy of an online internet version of the app. And then you can choose to publish this to the shared stream so you'd be able to share this app with other individuals. So here I click Import, and this will initiate the upload process. And when the app is uploaded, I'll be able to then share this app with up to 5 individuals for free. So if I go to my shared cloud, you can see there's the app. If I click it, you can see what the app looks like. There's my sheet. And there's the data story that we created. Okay. And then if I wanted to make this available to another individual outside my organization or inside my organization, I click Share, and then I could put in a email address. In this case, I have one set up for Qlik Sense Cloud user at outlook.com. Click Submit, and this will send out an invite. So when we go to the shared cloud user, you can see this invite is now pending. So this Qlik Sense Cloud user will receive an email. They'll click the link for verification. They will register, and then upon logging into the system, and I set up another session utilizing a Chrome browser to simulate the login of that second user. And you can see now that that user has access to the Qlik Sense Cloud, where they can begin sharing their apps. But you'll also see the shared stream, which is the stream of the user who sent an app or the link to me or shared the app with me. If I click on that individual, now I can see that shared app. Here, I can select the sheet, and there's the app. Now, the final thing I wanted to share with you today is also to show you how we can create using a mobile device, such as an iPad or a tablet. And I have some software on here where I can share my screen of my iPad. You won't be able to see the actual finger motions, but you will be able to see the process. So I'm hooked up to that same environment that I showed you earlier when I gave you the analysis demonstration. So what I'm going to do is actually select the sales stream, and I'm going to go into the consumer goods app that we accessed earlier. And this time I'm going to utilize a prepared template, if you will, to create my own analysis. And what I'm going to do is, you can see as part of this app, I have the ability to create my own sheets. So let's say I want to look at the sales rep performance, and this is my main template. And I want to make some changes to this. So what I can do is select Edit. And what it'll do is it'll say, as the user that I'm logged in with, you don't have access to change this approved sheet, but you can duplicate it and then make your own. So what I can do is click on Duplicate, and this will create a copy of the sheet, but only accessible to me. And if I go into the Sales Rep Performance Viewer Sheet window, you can see there's something called My Sheets on the bottom. So now I can begin making changes. So I can delete any of these objects, or at the same time, we're looking at, let's say, this is sales versus margin. And by looking at the data, we're looking at product subgroup. Well, maybe I want to change this by utilizing the approved dimensions. Maybe I'm interested in looking at this by sales rep. So I'm going to drop it on top and replace product subgroup. And now my scatter plot is reflecting sales rep. If I wanted to create something completely new, I can do a sustained hold and select the little ellipsis button, delete. Then I can go into my charts, and I can choose another bar chart, add a dimension, and add a measure, just like I did earlier today. Also, let's just delete this, and let's go into the visualizations library. And these are the predefined visualizations. And here is, let's say, sales versus budget, or sales by quantity, another tree map, if you will. And then click Done. And then that is my copy of this particular analysis that I'd like to keep for myself. Now, if I wanted to and I had access, I could actually publish this to the community. And by publishing this to the community, it makes others who have access to the stream to see my version of this analysis. And they can use my analysis to discover new findings. And in the spirit of sharing on a mobile device, I also wanted to show you small devices mode. So here I have my iPhone. And you can see here's the same exact environment that I showed you on the browser and in the tablet. There are my streams. Let me select my sales stream. There's the consumer goods sales app. I select that app. There are my approved sheets. And there's the sheet I just created a moment ago on my tablet. And with small devices mode, you have the ability to search your data. And what it'll do is, due to the responsive nature of the device, it will either wrap the charts or lay them horizontally across, as you can see here, or if I turn it this way, it will put them in a vertical order. Okay, and the same concept of interaction, you can zoom in, you could analyze, you can sustain hold for your selections, take snapshots, etc. Okay, so this is small devices mode on an iPhone or smartphone. All you need is an HTML5 compliant browser. For the iPhone devices, Safari is one of the supported browsers. So okay, that's what I wanted to show you. Hopefully you've enjoyed this webinar, and it's been my pleasure to present to you today. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to turn it over for some Q&A. Thanks again, guys.